Chapter 28. Existential ecstatic love. When a devotee is always intensely affected by love for Krishna in a direct relationship with him, or even a little apart from him, from his status, is called existential ecstatic love. The symptoms originating from such existential ecstatic love are divided into three headings, namely moist, burnt, and dried up. Most existential ecstatic love aroused in connection with Krishna is divided into two, direct and indirect. Radharani was weaving a garland of kunda flowers, and upon hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, she immediately stopped her work. This is an example of direct moisture. Di- um, Direct merchant existential ecstatic love. Indirect merchant existential ecstatic love is described in the following statement. Krishna, who is also called as Purushottama, is to the eyes of Mother Yashoda just like the cloud is to the eyes of the Chatki bird. When Krishna has been brought to Mathura, Mother Yashoda, being very anxious and angry, began to rebuke the king of Mathura. Burnt existential ecstatic love is divided into three, and one example is as follows. One day, Mother Yashoda was dreaming that the gigantic demon Putana was lying on the courtyard of her house, and she immediately became anxious to seek out Krishna.
When there are manifestations of aesthetic symptoms in the body of a non-devotee, these are called dried up symptoms of aesthetic love. The non-devotees are actually materialistic, but in contact with some pure devotee, they sometimes may manifest some symptoms of aesthetic ecstasy. Devotional scholars call these dried up symptoms. There are 8 symptoms of ecstatic love: becoming stunned, perspiring, standing of the hair on the body, faltering of the voice, trembling of the body, changing of the bodily colors, shedding tears and shedding tears, shedding of tears and devastation. The scientific explanation of these 8 symptoms is given by Rupa Goswami as follows: when the vital force of life is in contact with the earth, one is stunned. When the same force come into contact with the water, there is shedding of tears. When the same force comes in contact with fire, there is perspiration. When the force come into the contact of the sky, there is complete devastation. And when that force come into contact with the air, there is trembling, failing of the voice, and standing of the hairs on the body. These symptoms are sometimes manifested internally and sometimes externally. The pure devotee always feels such symptomatic expressions within himself, but being afraid of outsiders, he does not generally manifest them externally.
Becoming stunned. The symptom of being stunned is caused by ecstatic tribulation, fearfulness, astonishment, lamentation, and anger. The symptom is exhibited by a stoppage of talking, a stoppage of movement, a feeling of voidness, and an extreme feeling of separation. When Uddhava was describing Krishna's pastimes to Vidura, he said one day the gopis became stunned when Krishna, in the dress of gardening maid, entered the greenhouse and enlivened them with joking and laughter. Then, when Krishna left the greenhouse, the gopis were seeing Krishna so ecstatically that it was as their as though both their minds and eyes were following him. These symptoms signify that although the gopis' business was not finished, they had become stunned with ecstatic love. Another example of being stunned took place when Krishna was surrounded by various wrestlers in the sacrificial arena. of Kamsa. His mother Devaki then became stunned and her eyes dried up when she saw Krishna among the wrestlers.
There is also an example of the astonishment of Lord Brahma. It is explained in the 10th canto, 13th chapter, verse 56 of Srimad Bhagavatam, that when Brahma understood that this cowherd boy was the supreme personality of God himself, he became stunned. All of his sensory activities stopped when he saw all the cowherd boys again along with Krishna. Lord Brahma was so stunned that he appeared to be a golden statue with four heads. Although also when the residents of Braja found that Krishna has lifted a Govardhan hill with his left hand, they became stunned. Astonishment caused by lamentation was exemplified when Krishna was entering into the belly of Aghasur demon, and all the demigods from higher planets became stunned with lamentation. A similar example of becoming stunned was visible in Arjuna when he was um, when he saw that Ashwathama was attempting to release his Brahmastra at Krishna.
Perspiring, an example of perspiring because of jubilation is described in the Vedic literature. When Gopi addressed Radharani thus, "My dear Radharani, you are rebuking the sunshine unnecessarily. But I can understand that you are perspiring only because of your becoming too lusty at seeing Krishna." Perspiration caused by fearfulness was exhibited by Raktaka, one of the servants of Krishna. One day, Krishna dressed himself just like Abhimanyu, the husband of Radharani. Abhimanyu did not like Radharani's association with Krishna, and therefore, when Raktaka saw Krishna in the dress of Abhimanyu and thus mistook his identity, he began to strongly rebuke him. As soon as Raktaka finally understood that it was Krishna in the dress of Abhimanyu, he began perspiring. This perspiration was caused by fearfulness. Perspiration due to anger was exhibited by Garud, the eagle who is the carrier of Vishnu. Once the heavenly king Indra was standing torrents of rain over Vrindavan. Karuna was observing the incident from above the clouds, and because of his anger, he began perspiring.
Standing of hairs on the body. The standing up of the hairs on the body was manifested when Mother Yashoda found within Krishna's mouth all the universal planetary systems. She had asked Krishna to open his mouth wide just to see whether he had eaten dirt. But when Krishna opened his mouth, she saw not only the entire earth, but also many other planets within his mouth. This is caused the standing up of the hair on the body. The standing up of hair on the body resulting from jubilation is described in the 10th canto, verse 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in connection with the gopis engaged in the rasa dance. During the rasa dance, Krishna disappeared all of a sudden with Radharani, and the gopis began to search him out. At that time, they addressed the earth and said, dear earthly planet, how many austerities and penances you have undergone to have the lotus feet of Krishna always touching your surface. I think that you must be very jubilant because the trees and plants, which are just like hairs on your body, are standing up so gloriously. May we ask when you first got these symptoms? Have you been enjoying this jubilation since you were touched by the incarnation of Vamana, or since you were delivered by the incarnation of Varaha? Krishna would sometimes perform mock fighting along with the cowherd boys. When Krishna blew his horn in the mock fighting, Sri Dama, who was uh, who was on the opposing side, uh, felt his bodily hairs stand up. Similarly, when Arjuna saw Krishna in his gigantic universal form, there was a standing of the hairs on his body.
Faltering of the voice. When Krishna was going to Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrura, Yashoda and all the gopis came to try to forbid him to pass and to block his way. At that time, Radharani was so perturbed that in a faltering voice, she requested Mother Yashoda to please stop Akrura. Faltering of the voice resulting from wonder was exhibited by Brahma. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 13th chapter, verse 64, that after bowing down before Lord Krishna, when Brahma began to rise, he prayed to the Lord in a faltering voice. In the 10th canto, 29th chapter, verse 30, another example of faltering of the voice was exhibited by gopis when they came to Krishna, desiring to dance with him. Krishna asked them to go back to their husbands and homes. The gopis apparently became very angry and began to talk Krishna with faltering voices.
In the 10th canto, 39th chapter, verse 56 and 57 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, a faltering voice due to revelation was exhibited by Akrura when he was shown all of the Vaikuntha planets resting within the river Yamuna. When Akrura understood that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead, he bowed down his head to Krishna's lotus feet and with folded hands began to pray in a faltering voice. There was also examples of faltering of the voice caused by fearfulness. One of Krishna's friends praised him thus, "My dear friend, your flute was given to your servant Patri, and when I asked him to return it, he began speaking in a faltering voice, and his complexion became yellow, trembling. When Krishna was trying to capture the demon Shankha, Radharani began trembling out of fearfulness. Similarly, trembling out of body was exhibited in Sahadev, the younger brother of Nakula. When Shishupal was vehemently blaspheming the Lord, Sahadev began to tremble out of anger.
Trembling of the body was also exhibited by Radharani out of tribulation. Radharani trembled as she told one of the gopis, "Don't joke with this disappointing boy. Please ask him not to approach me because he is always the cause of all grief for us." Changing of bodily color. Sometimes due to great aggrievement caused by the dealings of Krishna, the body color changes. The gopis from the gopis therefore addressed the Lord thus: "Dear Krishna, due to separation from you, all of the denizens of Vrindavan have changed their color, and because of this change of color, even the great sage Narad was thinking of Vrindavan as a white island in the ocean of milk." When Krishna and Balram were present in the arena of Kamsa's body color changed. Similarly, Indra's face changed color when he saw that Krishna was protecting all the denizens of Raja by lifting Govardhana hill. If the color change takes place due to excessive jubilation, the hue turns red. Because such a of color is so rare, Srila Rupa Goswami does not further discuss this point.
Tears out of jubilation, anger, or separation, there may be the pouring down of tears from the eyes. When such tears are very cold, they are due to jubilation, and when they are due to anger, the tears become hot. In all cases, there is a severe movement of the eyes, and the eyes generally become reddish. There is also itching sensation, which causes the sufferer to rub his eyes. When the lotus-eyed Rukmini, the first queen of Krishna in Dwarka, was shedding tears out of aesthetic jubilation, she did not like the tears. There is a passage in the Hari Vamsa wherein Satyabhama began to shed tears because of her great affection for Krishna. An example of shedding tears because of anger was exhibited by Bhima when he saw that Shishupal was insulting Krishna in the Rajasuya arena of sacrifice. Bhima wanted to kill Shishupal immediately, but because Krishna did not order him to do so, he became morose with anger. It is described that there were hot tears covering in his eyes, as thin clouds sometimes cover the evening moon. In the evening, when the moon is slightly covered by a thin cloud, it looks very nice. And when Bhima was shedding tears on account of his anger, he also looked very nice. In the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 60, 60th chapter, verse 23, there is a nice example of Rukmini shedding tears of lamentation. When Krishna and Rukmini were talking, Rukmini became frightened of separation from Krishna, and therefore she began scratching the earth with her red lotus-like nails. Because she was shedding tears, the black ointment from her eyes was dripping along with the tears onto her breast, which were covered with kumkuma powder. Rukmini was so aggrieved that her voice was choked up.
Devastation. When a person is confused by simultaneous happiness and tribulation and does not know what to do, the state of confusion is called pralaya or devastation. In this condition of pralaya, one sometimes fall down on the ground and all the symptoms of ecstatic love become manifest. When the gopis were searching after Krishna, and all of a sudden he came out of from the bushes, and the creepers, all of them, became stunned and almost senseless. In this state, the gopis appeared very beautiful. There is an example. This is an example of pralaya, devastation, and happiness. There are also instances of pralaya in distress. One such example is described in the 10th canto, 39th chapter, verse 15 of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein Shukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, "My dear king, when the gopis were missing Krishna, they were so much absorbed in meditation upon him that all of their happiness senses stopped functioning and they lost all bodily sense. It was as though they had become liberated from all material conditions."
Degrees of aesthetic symptoms. Out of the many aesthetic symptoms of the body, the symptom of being stunned is especially significant. According to the degree of being stunned, the vital force within the body becomes agitated, and due to such a state, the other aesthetics loving symptoms sometimes become altered. These transcendental aesthetic symptoms gradually develop, and in the course of such development, they are sometimes called smoky, sometimes called blazing, and sometimes called shining. These three degrees are experienced for many, many years, and they extend to different parts of the body.
Thanks.
Unlike the shedding of tears and faltering of the voice, the condition of being stunned is spread all over the body. The shedding of tears and faltering of the voice are simply localized symptoms. The shedding of tears, however, sometimes makes the eyes become swollen and whitish, and sometimes the lenses of the eyes become differently focused. Faltering on the voice may sometimes cause choking in the throat and extreme anxiety. As the different symptoms of the aesthetic manifestations are localized, they are accompanied by different local reactions. Example, when the throat is choked up because of faltering voice, there may be a sound like hura, which sounds like choke the voice, and the extreme mental anxiety they may be manifest in different ways. All these symptoms are listed under the dried up existential condition as known as smoky, and they are exhibited in different ways.
Sometimes, while participating in ceremonies celebrating Krishna's pastimes or in the society of devotees, there is dancing ecstasy. Such sentiments are called blazing. None of the above symptoms can be manifested without the basic principle of strong attachment of Krishna for Krishna. In the smoky condition of such ecstatic expressions, the symptoms could otherwise be hidden. This type of symptom was experienced by priest Garga Muni, who was performing some ritualistic ceremony in the house of Nanda Maharaj. When he heard about Krishna's killing of the Akasura demon, there were some tears visible in his eyes. His throat was trembling and perspiration covered his whole body. In this way, priest Gargamuni's beautiful face assumed a nice condition. When several such ecstatic symptoms are visible, the condition is called blazing. For example, one of Krishna's friend told him, "My dear friend, as soon as I heard the sound of your flute from within the forest, my hands became motionless and my eyes became full of tears, so much so, in fact, that I could not recognize your peacock feather. My thighs became almost completely stunned, so that I could not move even an inch. Therefore, my dear friend, I must acknowledge the wonderful vibration of your transcendental flute." Similarly, when Gopi said to another, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of Krishna's flute, I tried to hide myself from the reaction of the vibrations, but still I could not check the trembling of my body, and therefore all of my friends in the house could detect my attachment for Krishna without any doubt."
When the aesthetic symptoms cannot be checked and they simultaneously appear in four or five different categories, this stage of aesthetic love is called shining. The example is cited in this connection that when the sage Narada saw Lord Krishna standing before him, his body became so stunned that he stopped playing on his veena. Because of his faltering voice, he could not offer any praise to Krishna, and his eyes filled with tears. Thus, Narada's ability to see Krishna was so obstructed when the similar symptoms were manifest in the body of Srimati Radharani. Some of her friends criticized her. "Dear friend, you are blaming the aroma of the flowers for the for the tears in your eyes. You are rebuking the air for the standing of the hairs on your body, and you are cursing your walking in the forest for your thighs being stunned. But your faltering voice reveals the cause to be different. It is just your attachment for Krishna. Sri Rupa Goswami remarks that when various symptoms become manifest very prominently, the devotee's condition may be called the brightest. For example, a friend of Krishna addressed him as follows: My dear Pitambara, because of separation from you, all the residents of Golok Vrindavan are, are perspiring. They are lamenting with different words, and their eyes have become moistened with tears. Actually, all of them are in great confusion.
There is a supreme symptom of ecstatic love which is called Mahabhav. This Mahabhav expression was possible only in Radharani, but later when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to feel the mood of mood in order to feel the mood of love of Radharani, he also expressed all of the symptoms of Mahabhav. Sri Rupa Goswami says in this connection that when the symptoms of ecstatic love become the most bright, that stage is accepted as Mahabhav. Sri Rupa Goswami further analyzes the ecstatic loving expression into four divisions, which is called Sattvic Bhash. Sometimes impersonalists who are not actually in devotional service may also exhibit such symptoms of ecstatic love, but this is not accepted as sexual ecstasy. It is a reflection only. For example, sometimes in Varanasi, a holy city for impersonalist scholars, there may be seen a sannyasi crying from hearing the glories of the Lord. Impersonalists also sometimes chant the Hare Krishna mantra and dance. But their aim is not to serve the Lord, it is to become one with the Lord and to merge into his existence. So Rupa Goswami therefore says that even if the reactions to chanting are manifested in the impersonalist body, they should not be considered to be symptoms of actual attachment, but reflections only, just like the sun reflected in a dark room through some polished glass. The chanting of Hare Krishna, however, is so nice that and transcendental that it will eventually melt even the hearts of persons who are impersonalists. So Rupa Goswami says that the impersonalist symptoms are simply reflections of ecstatic love, not the real thing.
Sometimes it is found that when staunch logicians, without any trance of devotional service and without actually understanding the transcendental glories of the Lord, sit down to hear the glories of the Lord, they appear to be melting and shedding tears. In this connection, there is a statement by a devotee who addresses the Lord thus: My dear Mukunda, I cannot properly express the glories of your pastimes. Even when the non-devotee hear of your glorious pastime, they become affected and shed tears too and start to tremble. Such non-devotees are not actually melted, they are hard-hearted. But the influence of the glories of the Lord is so great that even the non-devotees sometimes shed tears. Sometimes it is found that a non-devotee who has practically no taste for Krishna and who follows no rules and regulations can practice by a show of devotional symptoms, even crying in an assembly of devotees. This shedding of tears is not actually an ecstatic loving expression. However, it is done simply by practice. Although there is no need to describe the reflections of aesthetic love, Sri Rupa Goswami gives some instances where there is no such actual devotional service and such expressions are manifested.
Yes, Madhiji. Okay. Chapter 29 Expressions of Love for Krishna. There are some bodily symptoms that express overwhelming ecstatic love, Vyabhachari Bhav. They are counted at 33 as follows: disappointment, lamentation, humility, guilt, fatigue, intoxication, pride, doubt, apprehension, intense emotion, madness, forgetfulness, disease, confusion, death, laziness, inertness, bashfulness, concealment, remembrance, argumentativeness, anxiety, thoughtfulness, endurance, happiness, eagerness, violence, haughtiness, envy, impudence, dizziness, sleepiness, and alertness. Disappointment. When one is forced to act in a way that is forbidden or to refrain from acting in a way that is proper, he becomes regretful and thinks himself dishonored. At that time, there is a sense of disappointment. In this kind of disappointment, one becomes full of anxiety, shed tears, and changes bodily color, feels humility, and breathes very heavily. When Krishna, in punishing the Kaliya serpent, appeared to have drowned himself in the poisonous water of Yamuna, Nanda Maharaj addressed Yashoda Devi thus: "My dear wife, Krishna had gone deep into the water, and so there is no longer any need to maintain our bodies, which are full of sinful activities. Let us also enter into the poisonous water of Yamuna and compensate for the sinful activities of our lives." This is an instance of severe shock wherein the devotee becomes greatly disappointed.
When Krishna left Vrindavan, Subala, his intimate friend, decided to leave also. While leaving, Subala was contemplating that without Krishna there was no longer any pleasure to be found in Vrindavan. The analogy is that the analogy is given that as the bees go away from a flower when there is that flower that has no honey, Subala left Vrindavan when he found that there was no longer any relishable transcendental pleasure there. In the Dan Keli, Kaumudi, Srimati Radharani addresses one of her friends in this manner: "My dear friend, if I cannot hear the glorious activities of Krishna, it is better for me to become a deaf. And because I am now unable to see him, it would be good for me to be a blind woman." This is another instance of disappointment due to separation from Krishna. There is a statement in the Hari Vamsa wherein Satyabhama, one of the queens of Krishna in Dwarka, tells her husband, "My dear Krishna, since I heard Narada glorifying Rukmini before you, I can understand that there is no need of any talking about myself." This is an instance of disappointment caused by envy. Rukmini and Satyabhama were co-wives, and because Krishna was husband of both, there naturally was some feminine envy between them. So when Satyabhama heard the glories of Rukmini, she was envious of her and thus became disappointed.
The 10th canto, 51st chapter, verse 47 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this statement: "My dear Krishna, I cannot say that it is only other people who are implicated in material existence, but I too much entangled with the bodily concept of life. I am always too anxious about my family, home, wife, wealth, land, and kingdom. And because I have been so maddened by this material atmosphere, I'm thinking now that my life has simply been spoiled." The statement is an instance of disappointment caused by lamentation. According to Bharat Muni, this disappointment is inauspicious, but there are other learned scholars who have accepted such disappointment as being the mode of neutrality and as being the preservative of ecstatic love. Lamentation: when one is unsuccessful in achieving his desired goal of life, when one finds no fulfillment in his present occupation, when one finds himself in reverse conditions, and one feels guilt at such time, one is said to be in the state of lamentation. In this condition of lamentation, one becomes questioning, thoughtful, tearful, regretful, and heavily breathed. His bodily color changes and his mouth becomes dry.
One aged devotee of Krishna addressed him in this way: "My dear Krishna, O killer of demon Aga, my body is now invalid due to old age. I cannot speak very fluently. My voice is faltering and my mind is not so strong, and I am often attacked by forgetfulness. But my dear Lord, you are just like the moonlight, and my only real regret is that for want of any taste for your shining, for your pleasant shining, I did not advance myself in Krishna consciousness." This statement is an instance of lamentation due to one's being unable to achieve his desired goal. One devotee said, "This night I was dreaming of collecting various flowers from the garden, and I was thinking of making a garland and offer it to Krishna. But I am so unfortunate that all of a sudden my dream was over and I could not achieve my desired goal." This statement is an instance for lamentation resulting from non-fulfillment of one's desire. When Nand Maharaj saw his foster son Krishna embraced in the sacrificial arena of Kamsa, he said, "How unfortunate I am that I did not keep my son bolted within a room. Unfortunately, I have brought him to Mathura, and now I see that he is embraced He is embarrassed by this giant elephant named Kuvalya. It is it is as though the moon of Krishna was ever eclipsed by the shadow of the earth. This is an instance of lamentation caused by reverse conditions.
In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a statement by Brahma. My dear Brahma, just see my impotence. You are the unlimited, the original personality of Godhead, the super soul, and you rule over the most perfect illusory energies. And just see my impotence. I wanted to supersede you by my own personal power, and I was very puffed up with this tiny power of mine. Just as a spark from a fire cannot do any harm to the fire, so my bewildering potency was completely unsuccessful in thwarting your superior illusory power. Therefore, I find myself to be most insignificant and think of myself as a useless, as a most useless person. The statement by Brahma is an intense, is an instance of lamentation caused by committing an offense. Humility, a sense of weakness caused by distress, fear, or offensiveness, is called humility. In such a humble condition, one becomes talkative, small in heart, dirty in mind, full of anxiety, and inactive. In 10th canto, 51st chapter, verse 57 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the following statement by King Muchukunda. My dear Lord, because of my past bad deeds, because of my deeds in the past, I am extremely, everlastingly aggrieved. I'm always suffering from my desires, but still my senses are never satisfied with material enjoyment. Somehow or other, by your grace, I am now in a peaceful condition because I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, which are always free from all lamentation, fear, and death. O Supreme Protector, O Supreme Soul, O Supreme Controller, kindly give me your protection. I am so embarrassed. The statement by Muchukunda is an instant of humility resulting from a severely miserable condition of material existence.
When Uttara was attacked by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama, she became afraid of losing her child, Maharaj Parikshit, who was still within the womb. She immediately surrendered to Krishna and said, My dear Lord, kindly save my child. I do not mind it myself if I myself must be killed by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. This is an instance of humility caused by fear. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 10 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, O infallible one, I am born in the mode of passion, and therefore I have been falsely proud of being the creator of this material world. My false pride was just like the dense darkness, and in this darkness I had become blind. In my blindness, I was considering myself a competitor to you, the supreme personality of Godhead. But my dear Lord, but my dear Lord, even though I am accepted as the creator of this universe, I am eternally your servant. Therefore, kindly always be compassionate toward me and excuse me in that way. This statement by Brahma is another instance of humility resulting from committing an offense. Sometimes there is humility due to shyness. For example, when Krishna stole all of the garments of the gopis uh, while they were bathing in the river, all of them begged Krishna not to commit this injustice upon them. Then the gopis addressed him thus. Dear Krishna, we know that you are the son of Nand Maharaj and you are the most beloved of all Vrindavan. You are very much loved by us also. But why are you giving us this trouble? Kindly return our garments. Just just see how we are trembling from severe cold. This humility was due to their shyness from being naked before Krishna.
Guilt. When a person blames himself for committing an inappropriate action, his feeling is called guilt. One day, Srimati Radharani was turning yogurt for Krishna. At that time, the jeweled bangles on her hands were circling around, and she was also chanting the holy name of Krishna. All of a sudden, she thought, I'm chanting the holy name of Krishna, and my superiors, my mother in law, and my sister in law may hear me. But by this thought, Radharani became over anxious. This is an instance of feeling guilty because of devotion to Krishna. One day, the beautiful eyed Srimati Radharani entered into the forest to collect some flowers to prepare a garland for Krishna. While collecting the flowers, she became afraid that someone might see her and she felt some fatigue and weakness. This is an instance of feeling guilty of guilty feelings caused by labor for Krishna. There is a statement of Rasa Sudhakar. that after passing the night with Krishna, Radharani became so weak that she was unable to get up from bed. When Krishna took her hand to help her, Radharani felt guilty about having passed the night with him.
Fatigue. One feels fatigue after walking a long distance and after dancing and after sexual activity. In this kind of fatigue, there is dizziness, perspiration, inactive, inactivity of the limbs, yawning, and very heavy breathing. One day, Yashoda was chasing Krishna in the yard after he had offended her. After a while, Yashoda became very fatigued, and therefore she was perspiring, and her bunched hair became loosened. In this is an instance of becoming fatigued because of working too much. Sometimes all of the cowherd friends of Krishna, along with Balram, danced together in some ceremony. At these times, the garlands of their necks uh, would move, and the boys would begin to perspire. Their whole bodies became wet from their aesthetic dancing, and this is an instance of fatigue caused by dancing. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 33rd chapter of verse 22, it is said that after enjoying the love affairs with Krishna by dancing, embracing, and kissing, the gopis would sometimes become very tired, and Krishna, out of his causeless mercy and compassion, would smear their faces with lotus hands. This is example of fatigue caused by laboring in the rasa dance.
Intoxication, when one becomes arrogant with false prestige due to drinking intoxicant or being too lustful, the voice becomes faulty, the eyes become swollen, and there are symptoms of redness on the body. There is a statement in Lalit Madhav that Lord Baldev, intoxicated from drinking excessive quantities of honey, once began to address the ants, "O you kings of the ants, why are you hiding yourself in these holes?" At the same time, he also addressed the king of heaven, "O king of Indra, you plaything of Sachi, why are you laughing? I'm not prepared to smash the whole universe, and I know that Krishna will not be angry with me." And then he addressed Krishna. "My dear Krishna, tell me immediately why the whole world is trembling and why the moon has become elongated. And you, members of the Yadu dynasty, why are you laughing at me? Please give me back my liquors made up of honey from the kadam of flower." Srila Rupa Goswami prays that Lord Balram will be pleased with all of us while he is thus talking just like an intoxicated person. Baldev or Balram is the older brother of Krishna. He is an extension of the Godhead himself, and therefore to be considered as an incarnation of God, as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the state of intoxication, Balram felt tired and lay down for rest. Generally, those who are exalted personalities lie down when they feel intoxicated, whereas those who are mediocre laugh and sing oh, during intoxication. And those who are lowly use vulgar language and sometimes cry. Such intoxication is manifested according to different ages and mentalities. So Rupa Goswami does not describe further in this direction because there is no necessity for such a discussion. There is another description of the symptoms of intoxication in the person of Srimati Radharani after she saw Krishna. Sometimes she was walking hither and thither, sometimes she was laughing, sometimes she was covering her face. Sometimes she was talking without any meaning. Sometimes she was praying to her associate gopis. Seeing these symptoms in Radharani, the gopis began to talk among themselves. Just see how Radharani has become intoxicated simply by seeing Krishna before her. This is an instance of ecstatic love in intoxication.
Pride. Expressions of aesthetic love and pride may be the result of excessive wealth, exquisite beauty, a first class residence, or the attainment of one's ideal goal. One is also considered proud when he does not care about and does not care about the neglect of others. Bilva Mangal Thakur said, "My dear Krishna, you are leaving me forcibly getting out of my clutches, but I shall be impressed by your strength only when you can go forcibly from the core of my heart." This is an instance of feeling pride in aesthetic love of Krishna. Once during the Rasa dance, when Radharani left the arena of Krishna and went to seek her out, one of the dear friends of Radharani addressed Krishna thus, "My dear Krishna, you have been very much obliging in the service in serving the form of our Srimati Radharani, and now you have left all other gopis to search for her. Please allow me to inquire how you want her to treat you. This is an instance of feeling pride on the account of exquisite beauty. Sometimes Radharani felt pride within herself and said, although the cowherd boys prepare nice flower garlands for Krishna, but when I present my garland to him, he becomes struck with wonder and immediately accepts it and put it on his heart. Similarly, in the 10th canto, second chapter, verse 33 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma says, my dear Madhusudana, persons who are pure devotees of your lordship can actually feel your aesthetic friendship, and such they are never vanquished by any means. They they know that they are always protected by you, and they can matter of your matter of faculty pass over the heads of your enemies without any care. In other words, who has taken complete shelter under the lotus feet of the Lord is always proud of being able to conquer all enemies. One weaver at Mathura addressed Krishna in this way: my dear King of Vrindavan, I have become so proud of your causeless mercy upon me that I do not even count upon the mercy of the Lord of Vaikuntha, which is sought after by many sages in deep meditation. In other words, although the yogis and the great sages sit in meditation upon Lord Vishnu, who is residing in Vaikuntha, a devotee of Krishna is so proud that he does not consider such meditation to be very valuable. This feeling of pride is due to one's having achieved the highest goal of life.
Doubt. After Lord Brahma had stolen all the calves, cows, and cowherd boys from Krishna, he was trying to go away. But all of a sudden, he became doubtful about his stealing affairs and began to watch on all sides with his 8 eyes. Lord Brahma has 4 heads, and therefore his 8 eyes, and therefore he has 8 eyes. This is an instance of ecstatic love and doubt caused by stealing. Similarly, just to please Krishna, Akrura stole the Samantaka money, a stone that can produce unlimited quantities of gold. But later on, he repented his stealing. This is another instance of like ecstatic love for Krishna in doubt caused by stealing. When the king of heaven, Indra, was causing torrent of rain to fall on the land of Raja, he was advised to surrender himself at the lotus feet of Krishna. At that time, Indra's face became very dark because of doubt.
Apprehension. When a person becomes disturbed in his heart by seeing lightened in the sky, by seeing a ferocious animal, or by hearing a tumultuous sound, his state of mind is called apprehensive. In such a state of apprehension, one tries to take shelter of something that provides safety. There may be standing on hairs of the body, standing the hair on the body, trembling of the body, and sometimes the committing of mistakes. And sometimes the body may become stunned. In the Padyavali, there is the following statement: my dear friend, Krishna's residence in the demoniac circle of Mathura, under the supremacy of the demons, comes up is causing me much worry. This is one instance of apprehending some danger in Krishna in aesthetic love for him. When Vrishasur appeared in Vrindavan as a bull, all of the gopis became greatly affected with her. Being perturbed in that way, they began to embrace the tamal trees. This is an instance of fear caused by a ferocious animal uh, and of the search for shelter while remembering Krishna and aesthetic love. Upon hearing the jackals crying in the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda sometimes became very careful about keeping Krishna under her vigilance, fearing that Krishna might get attacked by them. This is an instance of aesthetic love for Krishna in fear by a tumultuous sound. This kind of fear is a little different from being actually afraid. When one is afraid of something, she can still think of past and future. But when there is this kind of aesthetic apprehension, there is no scope for such thinking.
Intense emotions. Emotion is caused by something very dear, by something very detestable, by fire, by strong wind, by strong rainfall, by some natural disturbance, by the sight of a big elephant, or by the sight of an enemy. When there is emotion caused by seeing something very dear, one can speak very swiftly and use kind words. When there is emotion caused by seeing something detestable, one cries very loudly. When there is an emotion caused by seeing fire, one tries to flee. Then there may also be trembling of the body, closing of the eyes, and tears in the eyes. When one becomes emotional on account of a strong wind, one tries to run very swiftly and rubs his eyes. When one is emotional because of rainfall, one takes an umbrella. When there is tension in his body, when there is emotion due to sudden disturbance, one's face becomes discolored and one becomes struck with wonder. And there is trembling of the body. If there is a motion from seeing an elephant, one may jump and show various signs of fear, and sometimes one may keep looking behind him. When there is emotion due to the presence of an enemy, one looks for a fatal weapon and tries to escape. When Krishna returned from the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda was so emotional from seeing her son that milk began to flow from her breast. This is an instance of emotion caused by seeing a dear object.
In the 10th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami informs King Parishit, "My dear king, the wives of the Brahmanas were usually very much attached to the glorification of Krishna, and they were always anxious to get an opportunity to see him. Because of this, when they heard that Krishna was nearby, they became very anxious to see him and immediately left their homes. This is an instance of the emotional activity caused by the presence of someone very dear. When Putana, the demoniac witch, was struck down and killed by Krishna, Mother Yashoda was struck with wonder and began to cry emotionally. Oh, what is this? What is this? When she saw that her dear baby Krishna was playing on the chest of the dead demoniac woman, Mother Yashoda, at a loss what to do, began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of being emotional on account of seeing something ghastly. When Krishna uprooted the two Arjuna trees and Yashoda heard the sound of the trees crashing down, she became overcome with emotion and simply started upward, being too bewildered to know what else to do. This is an instance of being emotional from hearing a tumultuous sound. When there was a forest fire in Vrindavan, all the cowherd men assembled together and desperately appealed to Krishna for protection. This is an instance of emotion caused by fire.
The whirlwind demon known as Trinavat once carried Krishna off from the ground and blew him around along with some very big trees. At that time, Mother Yashoda could not see her son, and she was so disturbed that she began to talk. That she began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of emotion caused by severe wind. In the 10th canto, 25th chapter, verse 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a description of Indras causing severe torrents of rain at Vrindavan. All the cows and cowherd boys became so afflicted by the wind and cold that they all um, gathered together to take shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. This uh, this is an instance of emotion caused by severe rainfall. There were several torrents of hail when Krishna was staying in the forest of Vrindavan, and the elderly persons bade him, "Krishna, don't move now. Don't you move now. Even persons who are stronger and older than you cannot move, and you are just a little boy, so please stay still." This is an instance of emotion caused by heavy hailing.
When Krishna was chastising Kalia in the poisonous water of Yamuna, Mother Yashoda began to speak emotionally. Oh, see how the earth appears to be trembling. There was there appears to be an tremor, and in the sky tears were flying here and there. My dear son has entered into this poisonous water of Yamuna. What shall I do now? This is an instance of emotion resulting from a natural disturbance. In the arena of Kamsa, when Krishna was attacked by big elephants. All of the ladies present begin to address him in this way. My dear boy, please leave this place immediately. Please, please leave this place immediately. Don't you see the big elephants coming to attack you? Your innocent gazing upon them is causing too much perturbation. Perturbation. Krishna told Mother Yashoda, my dear mother, don't be perturbed by the appearance of the elephants and horses that are so forcibly coming and raising dust, causing blindness to the lotus-eyed woman. Let let even the Keshi demon come before me. My arms will be adequate for victory. Please don't be perturbed. In the Lalit Madhava, a friend tells Mother Yashoda, how wonderful is that when the Shankachudar demon, vast and strong as a great hell, attacked your Cupid like beautiful sun. There was no person in Vrindavan to help you. And yet the demon was killed by your little son. It appears to be due to the result of severe penances and austerities in your past lives that your son was saved in this way. In the same Lalit Madhava, there is an account of Krishna kidnapping Rukmini at her royal marriage ceremony. At that time of the princess present began to converse among themselves, saying, we have our elephants, horses, chariots, bows, arrows, and swords. So why should we be afraid of Krishna? Let us attack him. He is nothing but a lusty cowherd boy. He cannot take away the princess in this way. Let us all attack him. This is an instance of emotion caused by the presence of enemy. Sri Rupa Goswami is trying to prove that by the above examples that in relationship with Krishna there is no question of impersonalism. All the personal activities, all personal activities are there in relationship with Krishna.
Madness. Srila Bilva Mangal Thakur prays in his book as follows: let Srimati Radharani purify the whole world because she has surrendered herself completely unto Krishna. Out of her ecstatic love for him, she sometimes acted just like an eldered person and attempted to churn yogurt. Although she was no yogurt, there was no yogurt in the pot. And seeing this, Krishna became so enchanted by Radharani that he began to milk a bull instead of a cow. Mhm. Okay. There are some of the instances of insanity and or madness in connection with the love affairs of Radha and Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that when Krishna entered the poisonous waters of Yamuna, Srimati Yashoda Devi went insane. Instead of searching for curative herbs, she began to speak to the trees as if they were snake chanters. With folded hands, she began to bow down to the trees, asking them, what is the medicinal herb that can check Krishna's dying from this poisonous water? This is an instance of insanity caused by some great danger. How a devotee can be in a state of insanity because of ecstatic love is described in the 10th canto, 13th chapter, verse 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein the gopis were searching for Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan. The gopis were loudly singing the glories of Krishna and wandering from one forest to another in search of him. They knew that Krishna is not localized but all pervading. He is in the sky, he is in the water, he is in air, he is the super soul in everyone's heart. Thus the gopis began to inquire from all kinds of trees and plants about the supreme personality of Godhead. This is an instance of ecstatic madness on the parts of devotees. Similarly, there are also symptoms of diseases caused by ecstatic love. This condition is credited all by learned scholars as being Mahabhav. This highly elevated condition is also called Divyonmad or transcendental madness.
Forgetfulness. When Krishna was absent from Vrindavan and was staying in Mathura, Srimati Radharani sent news to him that his mother, the queen of Raja, was feeling such separation from him that there was foam coming from her mouth, like the foam on the shore of the ocean. And sometimes she was raising her arms like the waves of the ocean, and because of her intense feeling of separation, she was rolling on the ground and creating a tumult, tumultuous roaring sound, and sometimes she was remaining completely silent like a calm sea. These symptoms of separation from Krishna are called apasmara or forgetfulness. One completely forgets his position when he manifests these symptoms in aesthetic love. Another message was sent to Krishna, informing him that after he killed Kamsa, one of Kamsa's demon friends had gone insane. This demon was foaming at the mouth, waving his arms and rolling on the ground. This demoniac demonstration in is in relationship with Krishna in a ghastly humor. This mellow or favor is one of the indirect relationship with Krishna. The first five kinds of relationship are called direct, and the other seven are called indirect. Some way or other, the demon must have some relationship with Krishna because these symptoms developed when he heard that Krishna had already killed Kamsa. Sri Rupa Goswami remarks that there is also transcendental excellence in this kind of symptom.
Disease. When Krishna was absent from Vrindavan and was staying at Mathura, some of his friends informed him, "Dear Krishna, because of their separation from you, the inhabitants of Raja are so afflicted that they appear to be diseased. Their bodies are feverish and they cannot move properly. They are simply lying down on the ground and breathing heavily." In the 10th canto, 12th chapter, verse 44 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit asked about Lord Ananta, and upon hearing this question, Shukadev Goswami began to show symptoms of collapsing. Yet he checked himself and answered King Parikshit's question in a mild voice. This collapsing condition is described as feverish state resulting from ecstatic pleasure. There is another statement in Srimad Bhagavatam telling of the damsels of Raja meeting Krishna at the sacred place of Kurukshetra many years after their childhood pastings. When they met in that sacred place, all the gopis became stunned by the occurrence of a solar eclipse. Their breathing, blinking of the eyes, and all similar activities stopped, and they stood before Krishna just like statues. This is another instance of a diseased condition resulting from exuberant transcendental pleasure. Okay, so we'll continue this chapter from tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you so much, Mati for joining. Vancha Kalpatarubhascha, Kripa Sindhu Gachapati, Dana Bhavani, Vaishnavi, Namo Nama. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada.